one thing. Point number two is of those 6,000 odd manuscripts, you'll find that there are massive amounts of contradictions and discrepancy, such that 95% or 94% to be precise, according to Bar Ehrman, of the biblical manuscripts are dated after the 9th century. 9th century, here we're talking about 2 centuries after the Prophet Muhammad. We're talking about a long, long time after Jesus Christ. So only 6% of the biblical manuscripts are before that period of time.
That's a lie.
Okay, well, you're going to have to bring evidence as if it's a lie. I've given you a scholarly reference.
Manuscripts that
Yeah, there are loads of 6% of 6,000, still a lot.
that are in the time of Christ. At the time.
No, there's none at the time of Christ.
And also the date to the time of the
Listen, there's nothing at the time of Christ of the disciples.
Yes, there are.
And I'm going to ask you to prove your point in a second. Now, there's a third layer of problem here. Of the codices that we have, yes, the codices that we have and the codexes, like the Alexandrian and Codex Sinaiticus and others, you'll find that all of them have complete disparities and contradictions with each other. John Mill, not John Stuart Mill, but John Mill, who was a biblical scholar in the Victorian era, he calculated that he looked at 100 manuscripts of the 6,000 odd manuscripts that are available, and he calculated that there are 30,000 points of contradiction, yes, between the manuscripts. Now, can you imagine what that means when and therefore people like Bar Ehrman have said that there are about 400,000 contradictions between the 6,000 manuscripts. 4,000 contradictions is more contradictions than there are words in the. In other words, there are more contradictions than there are words in the Bible.
Most scholars have actually shown that they're actually in line with what the Bible says.
Like who?
There's loads. I can't think of one.
No, we're here talking here. I've given you names. I've given you references. If you want to defend yourself, you must be able to do the same thing.
You seem to be more interested in reading about these manuscripts than you are of reading the Bible. That's what.
No, but the Bible is those manuscripts.
No, but that's what
I'm asking you the first question: is what is the Bible?
Why do you spend so much time in reading manuscripts? But when a Christian says to you, go and study the Bible and actually try to understand it, you're like, oh,
fine.
No, I don't need to.
Listen to me. I have no problem in looking at the Bible and reading it.
What I'm saying is,
I do look at the Bible and read it, but I'm telling you the first question that ought to be asked is what is the Bible?
What I'm saying
Isn't that a first question that ought to be asked?
I've read things before about manuscripts where loads of people show that it's in line with the Bible.
Like
but
who?
obviously, I don't. But then obviously when
no, but hold on. Manuscripts. The Bible. Let me just get this.
I see obviously scholars saying loads of scholars saying this and that, but I don't take it in.
Can I tell you something? Let me be very frank with you. Yeah.
Because
now you've got different.
One second. Hold on. I don't.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Hold on. Because it doesn't bother me, right? It doesn't bother me that about what scholars are which ones are which, right? Like when I've looked at manuscripts of the Quran, right, and scholars what they say about the Quran, I can tell you that a lot of scholars say this, that, and the other. I can't tell you what scholars.
They tell you what?
I can tell you scholars say this, that, and that about the manuscript of the Quran.
Well, who says what?
Hold on. But I don't bother.
Okay.
I don't bother to learn about the scholars.
Well, that's a problem, my friend. That's intellectual laziness.
Why?
It's intellectual laziness because as a Christian, you ought to ask yourself the question, what Bible do you read? What version?
King James.
You read the King James Version. If you look at the King James Version as an example, and you go to the first epistle of John, chapter number 5, verse number 7, you'll read the verse that says, there are three that bear the witness in heaven, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Now, this is a Bible verse in your King James Version, yeah? If you go to the New International Version of the Bible, you'll find that this verse has been omitted. Why? The reason why is because the New International Version has realized that this verse, that there are three that bear the witness in heaven, the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit, has been inserted by biblical scholars or by scribes. Who in particular? It was inserted in 1520 by Latin scribes in Oxford, in the country that you live in. Therefore...
So what did it say originally then?
Well, it doesn't have that verse. This verse was an invention. Someone made it up. So in other words, so when you're talking about, okay, I get my guidance from the Bible, The question is, what Bible are you talking about? Because if you say I read the King James version of the Bible, my question to you is, why do you not read the New International Version of the Bible? And if you do read the New International Version of the Bible, it will be a different one. Why? Because they rely on different manuscripts.
I'll tell you why.
Because they rely on different manuscripts.
No, I'll tell you why.
No, that is the reason why, according to them.
God says, right in the last day, there'll be a time where my words will not be sent out anymore. So therefore, I do agree that there's slowly being things taken out, right? Slowly, right?
Sorry,
Like, for example, that slowly things been taken out, so because God would stop sending His word anymore, revealing His word to people. Now everybody's basically heard it. There's going to be people. He's going to stop sending it, and people are going to start probably inventing things. Like for example, it says things about begotten has been taken out of it. But we know in the Old Testament, it's a prophecy about.
I haven't made that point, so it's just a
No,
null.
but in one of the new Bibles.
Listen.
One second. In one of the new Bibles,
Which ones?
I can't remember which one.
You have to know the references.
I don't know. Maybe the New Living Translation. I don't know.
All right.
But one of them they have taken out in the New Testament about Jesus being the begotten Son, right? But I know they've taken it out because I know they don't want to know the truth. And because the Old Testament prophesizes about God begetting His Son, His Messiah. So therefore, you can't get away from it. So I know there are things that will be taken out. So therefore, I don't really take that so seriously.
Listen, what I'm saying to you is it's very straightforward stuff, yeah? I'm saying to you that the Bible, we don't even know what the Bible is. The Bible has layers of corruption. If you believe as a Christian, yes?
Sorry. Here's a very, very important question then. If the Bible is corrupt, like you Muslims like to say,
Yes.
first of all, you don't respect God.
Why do I not respect God?
Because it says, because the Bible, because in the Torah and the Gospel, it says God's words will not change, right?
Okay, well, once again,
Hold on one second.
which Torah and which Gospel? The one that you have in your hands today? Right, what I say to you, right.
So secondly, why would I have faith in a God, right, and trust a God that decides
Yes.
to corrupt him?
Yes.
To let His words be corrupted, right?
Thank you.
So that we can't hear the message.
Fantastic.
Hold on.
That's correct. That's
So
right.
why should I respect
That's right.
that kind of God? Why should I respect that kind of God?
Yeah, is you right?
That
SubhanAllah.
I would happily say,
Yes.
if let's just say for example,
Yes.
the Islamic God is true,
Yes.
right? One of the first things I would say is, you said that the gospel is a light to mankind.
Yes.
But the mankind hasn't heard the gospel, so therefore the only one that should be judged is you for lying.
Okay, so let me just see if I've got you right, yeah?
Right.
You're saying that, you said the exact words, how can I respect a God that allows His book to be corrupted?
Yeah.
So are you maintaining that the Bible has not been corrupted? Or do you believe that the Bible has been corrupted?
No, it hasn't.
It has not been corrupted. If I'm able to prove to you that the Bible has been corrupted, will you reject Christianity?
If you were to prove to me that it's been corrupted, I will reject all the Abrahamic faiths.
You reject Christianity?
All the Abrahamic faiths.
No, but you can't apply that standard to the Quran.
Yeah, and the Quran as well.
Why?
Because the Quran says that God's word can't be changed, and it also says the gospel and the Torah are the word of God. And therefore, no. Because it says, hold on, it says that God gave the gospel to Jesus and for a light of mankind, to be a light for mankind, the gospel.
Okay.
And how can the gospel be a light for mankind if it never left Jerusalem?
All right, so you can answer you. Basically, we believe that the Quran, first of all, the Quran tells us that we have to believe in the Torah and the Injil, yeah? The Torah is the book that was given initially to Moses, and the Injil is the book that was given initially to Jesus. All the Gospels are good news. فويل للذين يكتبون الكتاب بأيديهم ثم يقولون هذا من الله يشتري به ثمنا قليلا. So say, woe to those who write the book with their own hands and say this is from God, so that they can buy with it a miserly price. Who's the Quran talking about? It's
Why
talking.
do you automatically think it's the Torah and the Gospel?
Well, I'll tell you why. It's good because it makes it more clear. It's talking about the Christians and the Jews. And in Surah An-Nisa, chapter number 4 of the Quran, it says, الَّذِينَ هَادُوا يُحَرِّفُونَ الْكَلِمَ عَنْ مَوَاضِعِهِ. That the people who are, the Jewish people, Jewish clergy, have changed the Torah or the book from its original meanings. So it's clear in the Quran that we believe that the Torah and the Injil has been changed. Now,
So therefore it's not the word of God.
the ones that we have presently in our hands today,
No, so the Torah and the Gospel are not the word of
the
God.
ones that we have today,
No, the Torah and the Gospel are not the word of God.
which ones today, yeah? Yeah, it's not the one,
Torah and
yeah,
the
that's right. The ones that we have today are not.
So the
The
Torah
ones
and the
that,
Gospel don't exist anymore.
yeah, exactly.
So God's words perished.
Those ones, yes.
So God's words perished.
Indeed. Those ones that
so
didn't remain
God is a
intact,
liar.
corrupted.
So
No,
God
no,
is a liar.
let me give you the reason why. Let me tell you the reason why, yeah? God is not a liar. That's something you've said.
Yeah, he is, because
Yeah,
according
hold
to the
on.
Quran,
Let me tell you something.
according to the Quran, according to Islam, the Torah, along with the Quran, Torah with the Quran is the greatest books ever revealed to man.
Yeah, the original one.
How no.
So, let me just tell you one thing.
How can the Torah be the greatest book to mankind?
Can I-
No. Let me
Yeah,
finish,
to
right?
answer your
How
ask
can it
you-
be the greatest book to mankind if it's been
Allowed to
corrupted?
finish.
One second. It's been corrupted a long time ago.
Yes.
But yet Shakespeare can preserve his work.
By the way, Shakespeare is not. There's historical debate on whether, first of all, Shakespeare wrote his own plays, whether his works are preserved. There's historical debate upon almost every ancient document, whether it's been preserved or not. So what you said is not correct. But moving on to your final.
But there's many books that have
moving
been
on to,
better that have
no,
been preserved.
they haven't. The ancient ones.
Every book is corruptible.
Basically, every ancient book that we're talking about, there's a discussion among the historians about its preservation. But every ancient book is like that.
So you're
people don't see that.
comparing God's words to
Why not?
man's book.
So what we're saying here is, number two, point to listen, let me just one more thing. Sorry, then Sheikh can make a point to you. What I was going to say is, the reason why, because it's a question, it's an important question. Why is it that the Jews and the Christians, or the books of the Jews and the Christians, why is it that the book of Moses and Jesus was allowed to be corrupted and not the Quran? The reason why is because we believe, as is mentioned in the Bible, it's mentioned in more than one book, that Jesus says, do not go in the way of the Gentiles, for I was only sent to the lost sheep of Israel. Yeah? Hold on for a second. And if you look at the American biblical commentators, they say, the American Bible commentary of the Bible, it says that this means that Jesus Christ had a limited message to the children of Israel, and that his message did not expand more than that. The Quran says the same thing. The Quran assumes that all of the prophets were sent to their people in a certain time and place. So
How could it have been a light to mankind then?
no, it's not like to mankind. That's the whole point.
But the Quran says it is.
Exactly. So the difference between the Quran and all of the other previous dispensations is that we believe that the previous dispensations, like the Bible, or like let's just say the Old Testament, let's say the Torah and the Injil, these books, they were specified to a certain people at a certain time. Whereas we believe that in the Quran, as it says in chapter number 34, verse number 28, yeah, it says that we have sent you kafatan lin-nasi, that we have sent Allah, the Prophet Muhammad, for the whole of humankind.
So he's the Messiah.
Bashiran wa nadhira walakin akthara an-nas la ya'lamun.
So he's the Messiah.
It doesn't say anything about him being the Messiah.
Yeah, but what you just said is you
No, don't confuse yourself.
You said
Sorry, go ahead.
I think the debate is just doing too many branches. Yeah, let's concentrate rather than criticizing what Muhammad is the Messiah or not. Let's talk about just one specific thing. Yeah, you mentioned that regarding the preservation of the Bible. Yeah. Now here the question is when the Bible. My name is Muhammad. Chris, nice meeting you. Now here, Chris, when the Bible was written, that's the first question to you now. Here. Now, if you say to me, so the Bible, even the oldest scripture of the Bible, was not written at that time of Jesus. Peace be upon him. Now, that's why we are doubting there the one who wrote the Bible itself. Who wrote it? Who gathered these gospels? That's one of the things. And that's this question, let's you answer it, and then after that, we're going to have more into the discussion about these things. Now, when was the Bible first written?
When was the Bible first written?
Matthew was 55 AD.
According to who, by the way, 55 AD? According to who?
Well, scholars actually show it as well. And also the manuscript.
Which scholars?
The manuscript show it as well.
Okay, look, by the way, I've not seen 55 AD. I've seen 75 AD. I've heard that. But let's go with your estimate.
John's was 90 AD.
John was the latest one, yeah? of the four Gospels. Now hold on. Actually, people don't realize that the Gospel is not as it seems. There's Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, and then there's L source and Q source and M source. QLM are these books that the biblical Hyde. QLM are these three sources that biblical scholars use to inform Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Matthew, Mark, Luke are referred to as the Synoptic Bible, and John is the latest one. Okay, so the youngest ones are Matthew, Mark, and Luke. These were not, according to the consensus of the biblical scholarship, as is narrated by Bart Ehrman and Bruce Metzger and others. All of these people have said that the Bible was definitely not written at the time of Jesus Christ, but it was written at least 75 years, let's say 100 years maybe later on. We haven't got exact dates even. And the whole New Testament is not even intact. Do you see what I'm saying?
That's what you're saying.
Yeah, so the point is...
No, that's the scholars who are specialized in the Bible. Those are their statement. Now here. So the first question, when was the first? So not the second. Who collected the whole gospel? Who did that?
That's a good question, because now you're asking, so now you have, different sects of Christianity have different books that go into the canon, yeah? So, if you look, you're a Protestant, there are 66 books in your canon. Roman Catholics have 72 books in their canon, and Ethiopian Orthodox have 81 books in their canon.
Yeah, that's
Each book, by the way, it gets even more complicated when you look at the codices. If you look at the Codex Sinaiticus, there are books in that canon, in that codex, that are not in any of those three. In the Protestant, the Roman Catholic, and the Ethiopian Orthodox. Where do we put them? Who decides what is the Bible? That's the question. Because you're reading the Bible, you're reading the King James Version of the Bible, but you've got to ask yourself, who decides what's in the Bible? I gave you one example of something that's in the Bible in the King James Version, which is First Epistle of John, chapter number 5, verse number 7, that freed the thing in heaven, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. There's another example I'll give you. The First Timothy, chapter number 3, verse number 16, yeah? If you look at 1 Timothy, chapter number 3, verse number 16, you'll find that there's a mention in the King James Version, yes, that God became flesh. God became flesh. Now, if you look at almost all of the other Bibles, maybe with the exceptions of a few, they said this is an insertion of the Bible. It's not in the original Bible. So it's not in the original codices, you see. And there's other examples. You know the example of Jesus Christ, and this is what Ehrman mentions in his book, misquoting Jesus. You know, he says it in his book. You know the example of the adulterous woman, a woman that committed adultery, yeah? What happened?
It wasn't originally there.
Yeah, the whole story of a woman. There's a woman that committed adultery. Jesus said a judge between her. So he didn't want to go against the rule of Moses. So he said, let the one without sin throw the first stone. This story, which is in the book of John, is an insertion according to the biblical scholars. And there are other insertions. Like, for example, if you look at John chapter number 7, verses number 8 to 10. It's mentioned in John chapter number 7, verse 8 to 10, that Jesus Christ, he talks about a feast and he says, I'm not going to come up here. And he comes up straight away. This word yet, according to, even if you look at the Cambridge Bible commentary, yeah, there's a Bible commentary for students or something like that, and other commentaries and other commentaries, they say that this yet is an insertion. Meaning what? Meaning, if yet is an insertion, that Jesus lied. That Jesus lied according to the Bible.
Either lied or someone after Jesus, he said that this is what Jesus said.
Yes.
Which he didn't say.
Yeah, the sort of scribe.
Someone put these,
exactly.
Put these statements.
That's right.
Jesus didn't say, and they put them in the Bible. Now here, does that make us to trust a document which it has insertion in it, which it has things which Jesus might not say, which means we can stand on a neutral land. We can't say, is the Bible is true?
That's right.
Is the Bible is not true? I mean, that's the question here. And how we could judge that these statements, which all the statements in the Bible, are the saying of Jesus or not? That's the thing here. That's why we say we are standing in a place we doubt about the preservation
preservation of the Quran.
Have you got an early manuscript in time?
Yes, I'll tell you how we can prove. If you'll allow me, and the Sheikh can.
Yeah,
Sorry.
I will explain to you.
Go.
The Quran was not the preservation of the Quran. That at the time of Muhammad, peace be upon him, not only made the people write the Quran, he made people memorize the Quran at his time. Not only one person, a huge number of the companions of Muhammad, peace be upon him, who recited the Quran to them, and then they recited the Quran back to him the way that it was revealed to him. So, not only one person, not only two person, like a huge number of the companions of Muhammad. So those ones, they, what Muhammad told them, and then they recited
right.
back to him. And then that's the first generation. Then they transferred that to the next generation.
That's right.
So the secret of the preservation of the Quran, that it is memorized. Now, at the very same moment now, there is over than 10 million people who memorize the Quran from cover to cover, the way that it was revealed, exactly. Which means if you collect the whole Quran and you burn them, we are still able to produce a Quran.
So there's one thing I wanted to add.
You haven't got any hadith manuscript though?
No, hold on. Let me tell you.
Because the hadith wasn't written until...
Hold on.
Let's do with the Quran.
Without doing the
Can we do with the Quran? Yeah. The Quran, according to look, we've got a scholar called Ibn Jazari. He's a very big scholar. He said that in order for a Quran to be a Quran, it has to meet 3 criteria. He said number 1, it has to be memorized by the person. It has to have a chain back to the Prophet. Number 2, it has to be a written document. So it's not the case it's only memorized by people and then they can make mistakes. But we had a written Quran from the time of Abu Bakr Siddiq, which is the immediate successor of the Prophet Muhammad, up until today. And number 3, it has to be in line with the Arabic language. Now, as I said to you before, the oldest manuscript we have is the manuscript of Uthman al-Affan. If you go to 2 places, because Uthman al-Affan made, according to the scholars, at least 4, 7 or 9 different copies of a Mus'haf. Yes? Uthman al-Affan, at his time, he burned all of the non-standardized versions of the Quran. So if
I realised he also burned
he basically got a committee together.
no, there's one person, I can't remember what his name was, but he was Muhammad's trusted companion, who Muhammad put in charge of, I think, and he burned his one as well.
No, he didn't. Because Zayd ibn Thabit is the one who was in charge of the committee. He was in charge of the committee in the time of Abu Bakr, and he was in charge of the committee at the time of Uthman.
Why would he tell him to burn his...
He didn't.
He did burn.
No, that's not according to any source in our literature.
Yeah, it is.
Get it from me. Okay, but what I was going to say...
Let me just comment with this.
So basically,
Now here, the people who memorize the Quran, as I said to you, the people who memorize the Quran, those ones, they made a committee. Yeah? Those ones, that committee, they were judging on the script which is written. Yeah? Because the way that it preserved, as I said to you, the secret of it is to preserve, memorize. Then they brought the one which is copied. Some of the writers who were writing the Quran, sometimes they might be mixing words of Muhammad with the Quran. So they will bring these documents and then judge. And this committee, all of them, the one who memorized the Quran, and then they are approved by the Prophet peace be upon him. Those ones, they are the very same one who approved the Quran the way that it's written.
Yeah.
Did you get it? So that's how it is preserved.
So basically, what Uthman al-Affan did, so you had Abu Bakr Siddiq, who was the immediate... What happened is you had the Prophet Muhammad, yeah? He was a prophet for 23 years. After him, Abu Bakr Siddiq was a Khalifa for 2 years and 6 months. Then you had Umar ibn Khattab, who was another Khalifa for 10 years and 6 months. Ali ibn Abi Talib, and then Uthman al-Affan. Uthman al-Affan, then Ali ibn Talib. Uthman al-Affan for 11 years and 11 months. When Uthman al-Affan was in charge now, so we have, from the time of Abu Bakr, the book, the Quran, was there at the time of Abu Bakr. And it was at the house of Hafsa, which was the daughter of the wife of the Prophet and the daughter of Umar. This book, the Quran, was there, and we had people memorizing it. So you had 2 different forms of preservation. You had the written form, and you had the oral form. This stayed until the time of Uthman. We said that Umar ibn Khattab was in the middle. Uthman al-Affan, 11 years, 11 months. He was in charge. Now people started writing the Quran their own themselves. People that were not the close companions of the Prophet, maybe, or that they hadn't they didn't have a very strong understanding of the Quranic script. So one of the problems we find with Christianity is that the scribes were not good at copying, according to Ba'am. And he said that a lot of the problem why you have differences in the scribes no, that's what Ba'am says. He says in misquoting Jesus, he says that because people misquoted it, misspelled things and everything like that. For us to eliminate this problem,
I read they were actually very good at.
no, I had the opposite. Osman al-Affan, he decided.
You just want to read what you want to read. That's
No, but I'm just telling you how the Quran is preserved. Osman al-Affan, he once again, he assembled a committee of people, yes, including Zayd ibn Thabit, who was the head of that committee, and then he said that the Quran ought to be preserved now. How is it preserved? It was preserved.
Why would they burn Zayd's Quran?
They didn't.
They did.
Okay, can you give me not Zayd's Quran?
That's it.
Get your phone out.
I don't need to get my phone. You get your phone now.
I haven't got one.
I'm sorry, man. I can't. But you have to bring evidence to what you're saying.
I'll bring it next week. But I'll tell you,
Bring it next week. They didn't. Zayd is the one who was in charge of the committees.
No, that's it.
Not Zayd. No.
I know who you're talking about, but not that.
It's not Zayd. They burned other people's Qurans that wrote it that were outside of the committee. Why? Because it's not standardized. Because it didn't meet the criteria. So the criteria was that people had to be closest to the Prophet.
He destroyed from China with the Prophet and then they banned the one with the
It's a different name. You got a different name. So basically, they burned a lot of people's. Actually, not just one or two. They burned a lot of people's Qurans that were not standardized. So that eliminates any risk of spelling mistake, this and that, someone wrote something incorrectly, whatever. All that existed, therefore, was the standardized Qurans that Uthman al-Affan would then send to different centers of power. So he sent it to Mecca, he sent it to Medina, one in Basra, one in Bahrain.
One in Turkey.
No, he didn't send to one in Turkey. That went to Turkey later on. Bahrain.
When did it go to Istanbul?
It went to Turkey.
It went one to Hijab, one to Bahrain, one to Medina, and one to They put it into different
Istanbul.
places.
Do you know when that was?
So now, 1600.
Now you have a problem there. You know what the big problem is?
Do you know what it is?
You know there's been found in the Quranic manuscript in Turkey, and that the night journey is not even in there.
Alright, anyways, this is not correct.
Well, yeah, it is.
Do you know what? Let me say it. Have you seen the Quran yourself?
Huh?
Can you read Arabic?
I can't read Arabic myself.
Alright, now, one of our shuyukh.
But Muslim scholars have even been.
No. I'll tell you for a fact. First of all, there are two entirely preserved. One, there's an entirely preserved mushaf. Excuse me.
This is like.
Excuse me. Can I please finish? There is an entire. You asked the question. There is an entirely preserved mushaf from Fatiha to Nas. It's in Yemen. It's in Madhaf Sana'a. It's in the museum of Sana'a. And one of the people that taught me, one of the shuyukh that I have, he went to Yemen. He opened it up because he had special privilege to that. He opened it up in Yemen and he saw the blood because Uthman was killed, yeah? Uthman was killed by someone killing him and he was reading the Quran. So blood splattered on a specific verse, Allah. This verse is Surah Al-Baqarah. This sheikh of mine, he went there and you can do the same thing if you have the ability to do so. Obviously Yemen now is not the best place to go to. But if you do open it up, you'll find that the whole Quran is preserved from beginning to end. It's been carbon dated. And furthermore, I mean, if you're not happy with that, I mean, the BBC have even said recently that there's a Birmingham parchment and stuff like that, which has been carbon dated to the time of when the Prophet was around. And it's been carbon dated by the Birmingham University. Nothing to do with people.
Read that. Keep reading it. Read it again.
Read it.
And they've actually discovered that it was actually that Quran predated.
No, I didn't read it.
Yes, you did.
It's 631.
You're very biased.
No, but it's not biased.
Give
me the reference.
About the Bible.
Give me the reference. Give me the reference.
I checked it out a long time ago.
Look, so you can't just make claims without evidence.
Yeah, because that's the thing. I'm not so fixed. You're so fixed at trying to prove the Bible wrong.
No, I'm telling you that everything is academic here.
You're fixed at trying to prove the Bible wrong. That you actually go out of your way to try and remember scholars' names.
Listen, man, it's just about if you present an argument.
Because the thing is, he cannot claim something to you without proving. For us, that's how we were taught. I mean, in Islam. Huh? Yeah, I have a phone.
Can I show you on the phone?
The thing is, I don't have internet.
Listen, my friend, let's deal with one thing at a time. Forget the Birmingham parchment. Pretend it doesn't exist. Pretend it doesn't exist. No, I'm just saying.
We can't just keep moving on.
No, but pretend it doesn't exist.
Why should we say it doesn't exist?
I'm just saying, saying that I've used it as an additional supplementary part of the argument. But if you don't want to use that part of the argument, it's fine.
That's been shown to actually predate Muhammad,
But
which means,
not according to the reports I read.
which means if that's true, then all Muhammad is a copy of that.
The official report.
Have you heard of that?
Okay, but
See, he's heard about it as well.
The Birmingham one?
Tell him.
They say that it's dated before the 7th century, but it's not confirmed. It's something, and you haven't
I read the article, and I know as when the people they are judging, they said the only way is the carbon dating inside the skin, which is I think it's the skin. So the skin could be taken before. It doesn't matter. This doesn't matter. Like for example, I could get a paper which is made in the 50s before I was born and write on them now. Do you get it? So that doesn't mean that it was written in the 50s. That's the thing here. So that's how they are.
It was written.
No, the Arabian carbon dating doesn't
Is the carbon dioxide inside the skin, and then they judge on that. What was the period? What was the period? And they don't give exact. They give estimated period of time. They will give like roughly 150 years. One plus 150 years minus 150 years. It's an estimated time at the end of the day. Yeah. So they don't give like exact.
The point is, we have evidences. If you look at any kind of evidences, we have the oral transmission, we have the actual books, and we have, even if you wanted to use radiocarbon dating, we have that as well.
But you haven't got any early manuscripts from this from the
We do have that.
from the Hadith.
From the hadith?
Yeah, you haven't got
So now we've moved away from Quran. So do you agree with us with the Quran now?
no, because you haven't got any early any Quran.
I've just said to you that if you go to Sana'a, there's one in Yemen. If you go open it up,
The
it's true.
Yemen one doesn't match the Quran you have today.
Yes, it does. Yeah, actually, it does match it.
It's
exactly the same one we've got.
Chapters missing out.
No, there isn't. There's no chapter.
Exactly the way that.
You have to go check it out.
My Sheikh went in and we opened it up. We went to Yemen itself and he actually looked at it. I swear to God, go to Yemen, go to Sana'a.
Muslim scholars have said.
That's what the scholars can say that.
All of them.
What Muslim scholars have
What I'll do is next week. If you want, no, next week. If you're serious about getting scholars and everything, which I wasn't really bothered about, but if you really want to know, I can easily go and find out scholars next week and bring them for you.
What I'm saying to you here is very clear, yeah? You said you
You studied all these scholars, and I don't.
Okay, fine. You started off by saying here today, now, you said to me that if God had corrupted his Bible, then I can't trust God. Yeah, that's exactly what you said, something to that extent. I said to you, okay, fine, you have a reason to have that kind of skepticism. Why? Because if God wanted us to follow a law or a book, surely that law should be preserved. So we've decided that looking at the biblical
Yeah,
manuscript.
I'm glad you said that. Let me just
Sorry. Let me just say.
No,
finish on.
because before we go further into it, I want to stop you at one point.
Yes, go ahead.
You said if God wants us to follow the best law, he needs to make sure that it's preserved.
Yes.
Now, are you telling me it's better than the law of love?
What? Now you've thrown in the towel, man. Now you've thrown in the towel.
No.
Now you sound like EDL, man.
What is
He sounds like EDL now.
Are you telling me Sharia law is better than the law of love?
Listen to me, man. Listen, I'm not going to answer
No,
this ridiculous question. We're talking about preservation of books, and now you're talking about
No, it's important.
and the law of
Can
love.
I say something to you? To answer your question. I would say to you a very simple thing.
Sorry, before you go in, I just want to make a point. The reason why I said this.
It's not yes or no.
No. The reason why I said
I'm
this
here,
is
for
because
example, was the methodology of Moses, was it right at this time?
it was appropriate.
Was it the right thing?
Yes.
Okay. So was the judgment of in the Torah, the things which is mentioned in the Torah, and what do you call it?
Punitive laws.
The Tanakh, I think they call it the Tanakh. Yeah?
Oh, yeah.
Was it the right thing to be applied or not?
Yeah.
Yeah. So and they have the laws which is there.
Yeah.
What is there? Yeah. So you say they're right. Yeah. Why you say they're right?
Because that's what God brought in.
Yeah. Good thing. So the same thing.
And also, I'll tell you.
Hold on, let me finish. So if it's something from God, that means it's right. God is good.
Yeah.
Yeah. If it's from God, then it's good. Whatever it is.
But I'll tell you.
Yeah, you agree
I
with
can
this?
tell you why.
Do you agree with this point or not?
Yeah, you're right.
Whatever comes from the God is right.
Yeah.
Whether I like it, whether I don't like it.
Yeah.
Yeah? It's good because it came from God. Yeah, you agree with this concept? So that's your answer. If it's true and from God, then it's good because it's from God.
Yeah.
That's how it is.
But what I'm saying is that
Don't change the subject, sir. We're talking about.
I'm not changing the subject. You're saying no, because it's on the subject. Because you said God will preserve things that He wants you to know the law of, the best law to follow, right?
He'll preserve preserve the look. Anything that he reveals,
but you're
look,
saying about the
anything
law-
that he preserves that he want people to follow for humanity, for the human, for
humanity.
for,
Okay, so
for,
I'm
for
saying,
the rest
I'm
of it,
saying,
he'll preserve it.
so I'm saying the best thing for humanity is love, because, like it says, if while there is law of don't do this, don't do that, do this, do that, there is sin.
Okay.
But what if you love everybody? Then the law is fulfilled in love. Because if I love you, I'm not going to go kill you. If I love you, I'm not going to go steal. If I love you, I'm not going to lie. If I love you, I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to do that.
Can I say something?
Right.
Now here, there is a statement of Jesus in the Bible, and he says, one of the statements, bring my enemies before me and slay them.
Yeah.
Now here,
Context, you have to understand that in
what's the
context.
context of it?
He was speaking in a parable first. Do
Okay, the parable, why he used that the parable?
you remember where it was and I can read it?
You can take it.
Do you remember where it was and I can read it?
Let me just finish with you, and then I'm going to tag him in, all right? I was going to say to you, just to finish off what we were saying before, with the preservation, issue. So I said to you, look, you said that you believe in the Trinity. You said, yeah. So why? Because of the Bible. Look at the Bible. Is it preserved? We realize now it's
I
not.
didn't say Trinity.
Okay, we realize it's not. So I said to you, there's a case to be made, and you realized, you said your exact words was that, why would God reveal a book that he wants us to follow if he didn't preserve it? I have proven to you that it's not preserved. I have proven to you that the Quran is preserved. And
No, you haven't proven to anything.
no, I have.
You
I'll
just
leave
said
it.
words.
Okay, fine.
Do you know that
We'll leave
they-
it for the
do you
viewers
know
to
that-
decide.
Do you know that Muslim scholars not long ago? One second. Do you know that Muslim scholars not long ago were actually, I don't know, I can't remember where they were, in some room or something. It may be in, I don't know if they're in a museum or what.